please welcome to the stage. We're going to be talking about Stop Taxing Your Growth, the new playbook for e-commerce compliance. So please welcome to the stage Adham Al-Jahami and Ryan from TaxCloud. Thank you so much.
Testing. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Today, we're discussing a really fun topic. Have a seat. Let's get right to it. So this is Ryan Pinkham, VP of Growth and Go-to-Market at TaxCloud. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Let's get right to it. Talk about sales tax and why it's something that brands should be concerned about or looking into.
Yeah, and first, thanks everyone for being here late in the day to talk sales tax, which I know isn't probably not the most exciting topic of the day, but we'll try to spice it up as much as we can. I think sales tax is a really important topic to be discussing here because you really don't have to be the CFO or the finance person to care about sales tax. Sales tax is a problem that only gets worse as things are going better for your business because you're growing, you're selling it in more states, you're adding new product lines. Those products might be taxable, they might not be taxable. And so regardless of what stage you're at, you're going to have to be worrying about sales tax in some complexity. And so, yeah, I think that's the primary reason why.
So taxes in general are always complicated, but specifically for brands, what makes it so complicated and why is it something that a lot of brand operators or founders tend to kind of put in the back burner until it's too late?
Yeah, on paper, you would think it shouldn't be that hard, right? It's like as a consumer, you go check out, there's a tax rate. It doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult. The problem is, just talking about the US, right? There's 50 different states. Each of those states have their own tax laws. In some of those states, it's not even just at a state level, it's actually at like a jurisdictional level. And these things are changing all the time, so they're not static. This year, in preparation for this, I was looking like, hey, how many sales tax changes? There's been over 400 sales tax changes in this year alone.
This year alone.
So, and that's like what products may or may not be taxable. That's what are the thresholds for when you actually have to pay sales tax. And so, that's really where it becomes a major problem.
And for brands that are not following these 400 changes annually, what risks are involved? What's going to affect?
There's a lot of fear factor out there related to sales tax, and it would be great for businesses like ours to be like, oh, you're going to go to jail if you don't do it, so buy a vendor. That's not the case. But there are very real penalties that you'll have to deal with down the road if you're not getting ahead of sales tax. And in the most extreme examples, obviously, you could get audited and you could run into that. I personally think even if you're doing something today, the real risk is more in the time and the suck on your resources that just happen all the time when you don't have a good solution in place. And I don't know how many people in here are actually dealing with sales tax, but you can probably feel that pain. It's a very real thing that brands have to deal with.
Can you share an example of brands that have dealt with this and what they've done to overcome it?
Sure. So I'll try not to get into too many specifics about the brand names that have been in really bad situations.
What do they rhyme with?
No, but I typically, when we're working with brands, you find there's 3 stages with sales tax. There's we know we need to do something, but we don't know what we have to do. And that's generally brands that are really taking off and getting to scale. This is actually a positive example, but we work with a great brand, Ball Boys Soap. It was started by a professional baseball player. It's to treat acne. And they were just crushing it on selling on Shopify. But they weren't thinking about sales tax when they got started. And all of a sudden they're getting all these notices from the states. And so now they have to go solve that. And so if you're in that stage, we can definitely talk about solutions for that. Then there's a stage of people who actually have solutions in place, but they hate how it's being done by their existing provider. And I'm not going to mention names of those providers, but if you want to visit booth 20, we can talk more about that. And in those cases, we see brands like that all the time. Blenders Eyewear, which is one of our brands, I got their cool glasses here, fell into that category and came to us and they were dealing with that. And then the more extreme examples are the ones that are we're a large brand. We know we have to do sales tax, but we're not going to deal with it right now. And ultimately what happened in that situation is you're just accruing a bigger and bigger problem. Luckily, there are things you can do. There's this thing called a VDA, which is basically a voluntary disclosure that you can go to the states and say, hey, we're finally ready to deal with sales tax, but we've been way behind. Can you help us? And we can talk about this logistics of that. But those are the examples of ones where you start to get a little worried. But luckily, there's always a path to getting to compliance. If you're in that situation, there's definitely a route to.
What does that path look like in terms of cost of time or work labor needed or even financial impact, depending on, I guess, the brand size for those brands that are in that position or in that problem, and that whether come to you or come to someone else and say, hey, I need help, or the one I'm using isn't doing the job. what does it look like?
Yeah, I would say like the most common one and that we run into today is bucket 2 I talked about, where they actually have a solution in place, but they're really unhappy with it. And we see that really often in brands selling on Shopify because sales tax as a problem is actually fairly new. A lot of people know like it wasn't really until a Supreme Court ruling in 2018 that like brands, most people in this room probably actually had to worry about sales tax in other states. And so the solutions that were put in place then and the companies that were launched to solve problems then like weren't really thinking about we're kind of built for that immediate need, but like the world has changed a lot. And so we see that a lot. Generally in the Shopify world, what people don't realize is you can actually use like Shopify actually has an amazing tax engine at checkout, Shopify Tax. Like if I could give anyone a tip, like check out Shopify Tax. If you're paying a lot for someone to handle your checkout, like go do that. It's a huge part of how you can manage that transition. And then where most of the time and the investment needs to happen then is like finding a partner that can help you either go through a lot of this work of getting registered with the states or to start filing in these states and starting to automate that. And the initial setup can involve some work, but that's typically where most of that happens. And that's where people can run into.
After you do the initial setup, how much of that becomes automatic? Is this a kind of set and forget system or?
It should be like that would be my message to anyone here who has a solution in place today. Like you don't have, I'm not here just to, I'm trying to avoid saying TaxCloud, but like, look at other providers that are out there, but like there's plenty of solutions where this should be automated for you. We're living in this world of AI. And, I'm not going to say that like AI is going to just go and do this for you, but the tools that you work with should have some of that built into them. And then they should also have teams that you can actually get in touch with who will answer your questions and will review your filings. And when you get a notice from the state that you're nervous about, we'll answer the phone and talk to you. And so we like to say it's like you can automate it with like a human touch. And like the best providers out there are going to do that for you, whether you work with us or you work with anyone else in the sales tax space.
How often should we be focused or dealing with this issue? Is it tax season's coming around? I need to give you a call or someone a call? Or is this something that we have to, modify or change depending on what laws get passed every couple months?
These rules are happening all the time, but you really shouldn't have to worry about these rules if you're working with a solution to put in place. In sales tax season is always, because it's different than personal tax, like at all the times, every month, every quarter. You're supposed to be going to the states that you're selling in where you have Nexus and you're supposed to be taking care of your sales tax. And so that happens. And then when these crazy rules happen, and we can talk about some of these crazy rules that happen with sales tax, the provider you work with, whether you're working like with Shopify Tax at checkout, which they will handle this stuff for you, should update audit right away. So you don't really need to be that tuned in on it, but it's a all year, all the time thing, particularly if you're a growing brand. But again, like you should be able to automate a lot of that away.
What are the crazy rules actually? Any examples, or have there been businesses that had to pivot dramatically because of a new law that's affected a brand?
We definitely see it in some places where it's not necessarily like a new rule they have to pivot, but they just have to like be hyper aware of it. Like in the supplement space, for example, like there's definitely states that either you'll be taxable, they'll treat it like medicine if it's prescribed or not prescribed. Like that's a major issue people run into. Certain states are a little more generous or strict on that stuff. Then there's like kind of funny ones like here in New York, people may have heard this example before, but if you buy a bagel and it's tax free, but if you cut the bagel and you put cream cheese on it, it's taxed. Like there's crazy rules like that. In Vermont, if you buy mittens, those are tax exempt, but if you buy
Bernie Sanders,
like ski gloves or not. So yeah, we could do those all day. Pennsylvania, Halloween's coming up. If you're in Pennsylvania, it's taxed if it's not noted as a costume, but if the provider labels it as a costume, it's not taxed. So yeah, there's all sorts of crazy stuff.
Who's making these rules? I know we're getting off topic.
Yeah, no. It's all really at the state level. And generally it's like with good interest in mind, right? Like in a lot of states, like childcare items and diapers. And if you sell baby clothes in a lot of states, like they don't tax those because they're essentials and they're trying to make life easier for people in a lot of cases. And then, some of these crazy ones, typically it's like very specific rules that end up playing out maybe as they wouldn't expect, which is probably not that uncommon in the rules and laws world.
In terms of back to the brands kind of focus on these, what have you seen with brands that have been super successful and kind of implementing this and the impact it's made for them? And any advice on people now who are in either of those buckets and we can go into each bucket and explain to them kind of what the best strategy is there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that first bucket I talked about where it's like, we got to do something, we don't know what to do. The first thing I would do is just get a read on your Nexus. Nexus is a fancy way of saying like, where do you have enough sales in what states that you have to worry about paying sales tax in those states? If you're on Shopify, you can go into Shopify right now and actually see that. You don't have to work with a provider like us. So if you don't know your Nexus, go do that. And then in that situation, we worked with like the founder of that brand, worked with an accountant and got referred to us. And so working like with a pro who actually knows this stuff, at least even on a short-term basis, is usually a good idea. Larger brands that have worked with us, Blenders Eyewear is one. Rare Form Bags. We're giving away great prizes from them at our booth, by the way. Come check it out. They were ones where it's like the biggest cost to them was like the time suck they were running into and the literal cost. So like cutting down the price they were paying on handling their sales tax by 40% was a huge thing for them. And also working with someone they knew was going to be done right. And so that was a major improvement for them. And so like working with their sales tax doesn't have to be super costly, and it definitely doesn't need to keep you up at night.
That's fair. In terms of AI, I know you touched this a bit. What are we seeing in that realm? How much of this is becoming automated? Is this something I can just throw into ChatGPT and have it handle my taxes?
Oh, I mean, you definitely can use ChatGPT to go, like if you're selling in certain states and you're trying to figure out what's...
This is not legal advice.
And that's a very important thing, right? I'm not here actually giving tax advice, so that should be really clear. But a lot of people might say like, well, won't the states eventually just automate this fully and use AI? And what you have to understand is like the states they're not in even like our current state. Like dealing with sales tax, like you're getting physical mail with like a password to get into an account. Like, so we're very far from like AI solving it at the state level, but the providers that you work with should be like doing that. And a lot of the tools that are out there are actively doing that. So being able to take like your data that's in Shopify and easily turn that into a report that you can see and then feed that into the different states, like that work should be being done by the providers. And, that's really where I see AI playing the biggest part. The other part is like all of these crazy rules we talk about and kind of have fun with, that should also all just be automated for you. So you should be able to bring your products in. A provider should be able to tell you, okay, what is this product? And AI can help us kind of identify, what tax code it should have and isn't exempt or not exempt. So, I think that's where you'll see AI playing a bigger role is like providers integrating that stuff into their platforms.
The sales tax differ through different marketplaces, whether I'm selling on Amazon, Shopify, or Walmart.
Yeah, that's a big one to think about. So technically on the marketplaces, they're going to handle sales tax for you, but you still need to know how many orders you have because it's going to count towards your Nexus. And in some states, you actually still have to report that on your filings. So generally what you want to do is, we recommend if you're selling on Shopify to be linking your marketplace orders, like syncing that into Shopify is a great way to do it because then most providers can just pick that up. You can also integrate directly from those to get a picture of it as well. But yeah, if I would say like mistakes people make is like forgetting about all of their different marketplace sales in addition to their direct sales. But again, like you should be able to centralize all that. And what you really want to do is to get like one view of your total Nexus. And that's where like working with a tool can help you.
And this includes retail, or is this all just e-com?
Yeah, retail. I mean, the great thing with Shopify is like if you're using that like POS, generally you can bring that in. But like, yeah, that all matters. And there's this whole difference between like physical Nexus and economic Nexus. So if you're in a state, you need to be paying sales tax in that state. Like you should know that. And if you have employees in certain states, that's also the case. So that's kind of where like the retail component comes in.
In terms of costs and time savers for brands, are there any advice or strategies that you can provide for them?
Yeah. So I mentioned one already, which is like if you're selling on Shopify, like go check out Shopify Tax. I feel like sometimes brands think like the like native Shopify tools aren't going to be good solution for large brands, like if you're a large brand in the email space, obviously you're going to use Klaviyo, might not use Shopify email, but like in the tax space, like you can definitely use, like nobody's better at checkout than Shopify. And so you can assume they're going to be great at doing checkout there. And that can be a huge cost savings for you. Still work with a provider to do your filings and all that, but that's one. The other area is there's a program called the Streamlined Sales Tax program, SST. You might hear it a lot. Google it. You'll find out about it. AI it, ChatGPT it. And that basically is a collection of 26 states where if you're filing in those states, the provider should not be charging you any money to do that. And that's completely automated. There's only a set number of providers. There's like 6 that are out there, but Google that, look for that. That's a huge cost savings too. So that's another thing I would recommend.
Nice. In terms of selling state to state, you also are involved with working with Canada. Is that something that it's generally available with other service providers, or how do you help brands that are like selling international or just focus on the US? Would love to kind of learn more on how you tackle that.
Yeah. So TaxCloud is like just starting the journey into Canada and supporting merchants selling there. I mean, the US definitely has the most complicated tax code. So generally, like you're going to work with the provider there first. We're starting now to support people selling into Canada. Generally, most of our customers are US based that are just trying to understand if they have compliance issues in Canada and want to deal with the rules there. If you're more international, like there's this whole concept of VAT sales tax, and the EU and things like that, where it gets, a whole other area you have to worry about. But generally, like it's the same sort of concept, right? You hit certain limits, you have to pay sales tax, and you have to stay on top of that stuff. And you want to work with tools that can solve that for you.
For those that avoid taxes and it's a burden, how much time consuming is this to implement and kind of get started on?
Yeah, to me, I mean, that's where like the human element comes, because ideally, like when you're moving over to like a provider or getting started, most of that work is like getting registered with the state is a very manual process of like getting a letter in the mail and doing all of that craziness, getting your passwords over. And you should work with a provider that's going to do that for you. You should have someone that's going to like take care of that for you. And so that's something we do at TaxCloud. You should work with a provider that has a real human element to it. And so the biggest time consideration for you is going to be like making sure you're spending the time, get a picture of your Nexus, making sure you're choosing the right provider, making sure you have all your data in one place and doing all of that. And that's where most of the setup happens. And then, once a month, once a quarter, you'll probably want to be reviewing these filings before they get sent to the state. But again, once you get this automated, the goal is like you should be spending as little time as possible. Every minute you're spending on sales tax is a minute you shouldn't be spending, that you could be spending with your customers on your products and that sort of stuff.
For brands here that are gonna, head back to work and look at things today, what are some things they can do today? They can answer today? Are there some questions to figure out where they are, what buckets? What's one thing that I guess they can take away and look at and find out if they're good or if they need to do something else or what they should be looking for or anything in that realm?
Yeah, what I would say first off is like, you don't have to be the finance person. If you're here and you're just listening to be nice, just keep in mind, like, if you're spending money to grow, ads and doing all this stuff, like that's money that you're spending, investing, that like could go to just paying fees to a state because you're not dealing with sales tax. Like that stinks. Like, so you should really like prioritize it. And if you're not involved with sales tax, go talk to the person on your team who is and make sure you have a solution in place. And what I would say is like sales tax does not need to be painful. It does not need to be costly. We're in a new world. You should go out and work with providers that are going to provide a great experience at a price point that makes sense for you. And if I was going to give a quick tip, go look at the SST program. That's like the biggest no-brainer. And again, like I said, I know a lot of people here are selling on Shopify. Go look at Shopify Tax, do that at checkout. And if you're on other platforms, like go talk to a provider, go talk to an accountant if you have one in your network. Like just do that work. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to kill your business. And there's a busy season coming up. If you guys haven't heard, getting this stuff done before then, it would be really important.
Thank you. Look at that. We filled up the whole time talking about taxes. You all stayed. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Ryan, great job.